Welcome to Weathering and Erosion. Let's take a look at these two pictures here. There's a picture from before 1990, and you can see that there's an archway here. And then there's a picture that's taken after 1990 in Port Campbell National Park. This is in Australia. So it's this right by the ocean. You can kind of see that there's the sand here. The waves kind of come up through these arches. So the photo on the left shows a rock formation just offshore, and the photo on the right shows the same rock formation after 1990. What do you think caused these changes at Port Campbell National Park? Go ahead and drop your answers into the question. Take a look at these beautiful photographs. Here's the Grand Canyon. Here's a valley carved out by possibly a glacier, maybe a river. And here is erosion that's happened by wind and water. All of these things, the earth has been changed through weathering processes. So what is weathering? Weathering is a process where rock is dissolved, worn away, or broken down into smaller and smaller pieces. The fragments of weathered rock is called sediment. So little pieces of dust, little pieces of rock, the smaller parts are called sediments. Here's a beautiful picture. You can kind of see where the weathering has happened. Look closely at the shape of this rock formation in South Coyote Buttes Wilderness in Arizona. Study the photo of the rock formation. Many features found in South Coyote Buttes have the same striking appearance. With a partner, well, with yourself, think of what could cause the rocks to be shaped this way. Go ahead and answer that question now. Physical weathering. So what does physical weathering mean? That means the breaking down of rocks by the forces of nature. Here's a picture of physical weathering. You can see that the plants are cracking through the sidewalk here. This process can be caused by changes of temperature, so freezing or heating, the effects of wind or rain, like freezing and thawing. Here's some examples, like the roots. Chemical weathering. All right, so we have some beautiful pictures here of chemical weathering. Here, acid precipitation in rain or other precipitation that is more acidic than normal. The acid precipitation reacts with certain types of rocks like sandstone, weakening them and making them more susceptible to physical weathering. The rocks break down over time. So here's what it used to look like, and here's what it looks like after the acid. Iron-containing rocks can react with oxygen and water in a process called oxidation. Oxidation can give the rocks a reddish color, sometimes similar to rust. In fact, the same process causes rust to form on bicycles left out in the rain. And then you have the pictures of the lichens and mosses on that rock. They produce weak acids, and then the plants grow on rocks. The acids slowly but steadily wear down the rocks. And here you can see the Statue of Liberty. Here's what it looked like when it was brought over. Beautiful bronze. And now here's what it looks like now, copper and bronze, actually. This is actually called a patina. A patina is what happens on copper after it's been left out to weather. So chemical weathering breaks down and decomposition of rocks as a result of chemical reactions. Erosion. So erosion is the transportation of sediments that have been broken down by the weathering process. So it's taking those little pieces of dirt, little pieces of rock, and moving them, whether it's moving them in the water or in the wind. Okay, and deposition is where you leave them. So deposition, or it kind of sounds like the word deposit, right? Do you see the word right here, deposit? Deposition is the dropping off of sediments that have been weathered or eroded. So where do they end up? Let's take a look at this chart right here. So we have weathering, erosion, and deposition. So weathering is the breaking down of rock. Okay, they can include water, ice, wind, animals, growing plants. Other things like tectonic forces as well, so earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. Erosion is the movement of sediment of the broken rock, so the movement of the little rock particles. So here's erosion of a little hillside here. You have the erosion or the little sediments, little pieces of dirt moving this way. This can be caused by water, ice, wind, or gravity. And deposition is the dropping off of sediment in a new place. Okay, so here's a sand dune. The winds eroded sand from another place and they deposited it here in this sand dune. So weathering, erosion, and deposition work together to change the landscape of our Earth. So another way I like to think about it is that weathering is breaking down using the hammer, erosion is the transporting, and deposition is the dropping off. Agents of weathering, erosion, and deposition. The most common four forces are wind, water, ice, and gravity. So if you think about gravity, it sounds kind of weird, but it's if you had a cliff and there's a rock sitting at the top of it, gravity is working to pull that rock down. So eventually it will come down. And ice, if you know anything about ice, if you've made your own ice cubes before, ice is a crystalline structure, which means that it forms crystals, and the crystals take up more space than liquid water. So when water freezes, it actually expands or gets bigger. So if water gets into the cracks on a road and then it freezes, it can break open the road because the water expands and gets larger as it freezes. Let's take a look at wind and water. Water erodes as it flows above ground, through streams, or underground through spaces in rock. And wind erodes as it blows over surfaces and lifts or pushes sediments around. When wind and water lose energy and slow down, they drop their sediments and deposition occurs. All right, so, let's go back. How will water and wind shape the land in each of these areas? How will it shape it at the blue? How will it shape it at the orange? How will water and wind shape the land at the purple? How will water and wind shape the land at the green? And how will water and wind shape the land at the red? Look over here. Waves are constantly crashing against the shoreline, weathering and eroding this rocky coast. The blue. Over millions of years, a river can carve a valley by the process of weathering and erosion. The green. This rock formation has been shaped by wind abrasion, a type of weathering. Wind erosion then transported the weathered sediments to a new place. The purple. The river slows down when it reaches the ocean. When the water loses energy, the sediments it was carrying are deposited or they drop to the bottom. At the mouth of the stream or river, this action forms a feature called a delta. We have a lot of these over like in Florida. The shape of the delta changes constantly as the sediments are deposited and eroded over and over again. Sand dunes form when, this is the red one, sorry. Sand dunes form when wind deposits sediments. Sand dune patterns are constantly changing due to erosion and deposition, and the patterns can shift in time scales that range from hours to years. So sand dunes, if you go back and visit it again later in an hour, it's going to be different. In a week, it's going to be different. In a year, it's going to be different. All right, let's watch this short little video.